this video, we are going to learn about metaphors. That's a fun word to say, isn't it? Metaphors. You're going to understand what metaphors are and how to use them. First, what is a metaphor? What is a metaphor? Well, a metaphor is a way of comparing two things. It's not the only way to compare two things, but it's a very interesting and creative way of comparing two things. You might have seen examples of metaphors in books and in poetry. And there's a really big chance that you use metaphors in your everyday speech. As you're speaking to people, we just use metaphors from time to time. And Bob loves using metaphors when he speaks to me. He loves comparing things in a really creative way. Metaphors are unique because they compare things without using the words like or as. And we're going to look at some examples. At first, they're going to look a little bit weird, but then you'll get the hang of it and you'll see how fun they are to use. Here's an example. Ben was a cheetah at the race today. Ben was a cheetah at the race today. We are comparing in this sentence Ben to a cheetah because he went so fast, and cheetahs are the fastest land animals in the world. So we're comparing Ben to a cheetah. It's a metaphor because we're making this comparison without using the words like or as. We mentioned earlier that metaphors can sound silly. That's because in our example, Ben is not really a cheetah, even though we said Ben was a cheetah at the race today. It's a way of comparing that makes it sound like there's no difference between them at all. Let's look at our metaphor again. Ben was a cheetah at the race today is a metaphor. It's comparing Ben to the cheetah, and it's not using the words like or as. Okay, let's pretend we did use the word like or as. What if our example was, Ben was like a cheetah at the race today? That makes it a different type of comparison called a simile. A simile. A simile is different than a metaphor because a simile makes a comparison using the words like or as. Remember, metaphors are comparisons that do not use like or as. Metaphors. Metaphors are comparisons that do not use like or as. Look at this example. The snow was a white blanket on the ground. The snow was a white blanket on the ground. In this metaphor, we are comparing the snow to a blanket. Notice you don't see the word like or as. This is definitely a metaphor because it's a comparison that is not using the word like or as. Let's think back to our examples. The first one, Ben, is compared to a cheetah, and he is called a cheetah. The comparison doesn't use the word like or as, so that was a metaphor speaking to how fast Ben was running. In our second example, the snow was compared to a blanket. The metaphor said that the snow was a blanket on the ground. That's a comparison that is not using the word like or as. This second metaphor speaks to the appearance of the snow on the ground. Metaphors. A metaphor is a comparison that does not use the words like or as. Look at this example. Learning is a piece of cake with Homeschool Pop. Ooh, this is a good example. Learning is a piece of cake with Homeschool Pop. This is a metaphor comparing the learning that you get with Homeschool Pop to cake, to a piece of cake. A piece of cake is a common metaphor speaking to how easy something is. Just like it's easy to eat a piece of cake, learning with Homeschool Pop in this example is easy. This is the metaphor. Learning is being compared to a piece of cake without using the words like or as. Metaphors are comparisons that do not use like or as. They're simple, they're fun, and they are a creative way of comparing two things. I am a block of ice. No, that's not a metaphor. I'm not comparing myself to ice. I'm frozen, okay? The big ice cube. Mr. Whiskers was in this lab with me. Mr. Whiskers, this ice is melting. It shouldn't take too long. Where's Mr. Whiskers? Where are you? Metaphors, a way of comparing two things without using like or as, but this is not a metaphor. I'm frozen!